good.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let's stop. Yeah. All good. All good.
We'll call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone here tonight. I'm Senator Carl Ford chairing tonight. And on behalf of the House and Senate redistricting committees, I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank my fellow House and Senate members, Senator Crawford, Senator Davis, Representative Smith, Representative James Gallard, Representative Coop-Suggs, so thank you, Representative Willingham, Representative Winslow, Representative Ray, is your name in here? Yes, and Senator Barnes. She didn't make the list. I don't know why, but she didn't make the list. I want to thank our staff for being here. Our Senate Sergeant at Arms, Hal Roach, House Sergeant at Arms, Stafford Young, our other staff, General Assembly Police, local police, everyone for their hard work here tonight. We appreciate you. I see Erica Churchill here, the staff, and other staff scattered around the room. We appreciate everyone being here tonight. We usually conduct public hearings in the order that individuals have signed up. Thank you. However, it's come to the attention of the chairs that individuals that may want to celebrate Yom Kippur, and with respect to that, if you wish and you identify as that, if you want to come up and testify at the front of the line, that will be fine with us. And please introduce yourselves tonight and mention any organization that you are affiliated with when you speak. Gotcha. First on tonight's docket, if you'll come up to the microphone, you have 2 minutes to speak, is Leonard Ward. Leonard Ward. Barbara DeTonio. Come up to the mic and you have 2 minutes to speak.
My name is Barbara D'Antonio, and I live in Goldsboro. That is in Wayne County. I'm the president of the Democratic Women of Wayne County, and I have lived in the rural area of Wayne County for 7 years. Wayne County is a community with lots of farmland and one large city, Goldsboro, and several small towns. the city of Goldsboro has recently completed a 20-year project of improving the downtown area. Our community problems are many. We have many challenges. Yeah, okay. And as with all counties, we want better paid educators. We want better health care for everyone, including the 16,000 uninsured in our county. We have many environmental concerns, like the flooding that we have every year, every time we get a hurricane. We are also home to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, which has a positive effect on our economy. Okay, let me skip down here. I am concerned about the fact that we have 2 House of Representatives, and one of them I am concerned about is Representative Smith's district. It includes the central part of the county, including the city of Goldsboro, and several counties in Sampson County. That puts him in 2 congressional districts, the 1st and the 7th. And I would like to see that continued because there is little or no minority representation in the congressional district 7. I know that the rules do not support minority or political gerrymandering, but I think that this representation needs to be addressed. We have okay, and now I need to stop, but I did want to say thank you all for doing this, and we have I'm sorry.
They're having problems hearing.
Oh.
It's all right. I don't think it's you. I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for doing this, and thank you to our representatives in Wayne County because they do listen.
Thank you, Mr. Antonio. Gary Booz. Gary Booz. Kelby Hicks. Kelby Hicks. Michael Bell. Is Kelby here? Oh, I got you. Michael Bell. If you could speak directly into the microphone, it would help us all. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you. As we know, redistricting is a very vital part of our lives, and I would like for you to consider a few points that hopefully you will take into consideration. One, districts must be drawn that are compact. Non-compact districts confuse voters. It split communities of interest and are often drawn to benefit certain voters or certain political parties. In other words, community is vital, and we need to stay within the amalgamation of that community. District must be drawn that do not split precincts. Splitting precincts also confuse voters. It makes it harder to have the administration of the elections, and are often used to benefit, whether we believe it or not, the incumbent or certain political parties. Cities and towns like Goldsboro, for example, and Wilson should not be divided unnecessarily to protect incumbents or a particular party. What is important is that legislators should consider communities of interest and not dividing them to protect incumbents. Please, I ask of you that you consider this, that we keep communities together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Angeline Echeverrier. Sorry if I butchered that name. Very sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Angeline Echeverria. I have lived in the Brentwood area of Raleigh and been active in the Latino community for 9 years. I'd like you to keep my community of immigrant families together. Many of my neighbors are immigrants or, like myself, children of immigrants. Looking at the businesses lining Capitol Boulevard and New Hope Church Road, you see the influence of many countries from Latin America, the Caribbean, Asia, and Africa. We deserve districts that take into consideration the common experiences of migration, language barriers, and the racial and ethnic discrimination that unites us with established Black communities in our area. Local housing options include single-family homes, duplexes, apartment complexes, mobile home parks, and low-cost hotels that some families rely on due to the lack of affordable housing. Rent and housing prices have skyrocketed. Many of my neighbors are being pushed out despite having contributed to the vibrant businesses, infrastructure, and construction that is drawing newcomers in. Our district should unite communities affected by gentrification so we can elect candidates who understand our struggles. The 2020 census shows that North Carolina is growing in large part due to community members who identify as Asian or Hispanic. Even though this growth has given us an additional congressional seat, North Carolina has never elected a Hispanic or Asian congressperson, and there are very few state legislators who identify as Asian or Hispanic. We deserve a redistricting process that actively acknowledges our community's growth, promotes racial equity, and includes immigrants. Information should be disseminated widely among ethnic media, more hearings should be held, and interpretation services should be offered. Thank you for considering my testimony.
Thank you, Ms. Echeverria. I probably butchered it again. Caitlin Metzger. Is he here?
Okay. Good afternoon. Is that okay? Is this okay? Good afternoon. My name is Caitlin Metzger. I actually live in Durham County, but I came here thinking I would have more time to, a room to spread out. So thank you for having me. I want to talk about two main points. One is just the process that got us here. I would like to urge the General Assembly to expand the redistricting process and make sure that we can push back this process to make sure that we can see the draft maps you're proposing. I would love to be able to see them before I comment on what I like and don't like about them. I know we're scheduled for a March primary, which pushes this timeline up, but it is within your power to push that primary to May and give us all a little breathing room in this process. The other thing I want to talk about is making sure to protect communities, especially Black communities and Latinx communities. I live in a city with an HBCU, and I do not want to see that community split on the congressional level or legislative level, or municipal level for that matter. I want to encourage you to respect campus communities across the state. I know we've seen that in Greensboro, in Asheville, and other communities. Please respect the campus communities as keeping them whole, as well as protecting Black and brown voters across North Carolina. I had one more thing to say. Lastly, I really want to encourage you to have these meetings live streamed or available virtually. I've been trying to follow all of them as they've been going on, but I would love for the General Assembly to offer this more widely available so that all of us can hear what all of us are saying and read the public comments that have been submitted online. So we would like to watch all the hearings and read all the comments. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Metzger. Gerald Branch.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity for us as citizens of this district and this area to come forward. But Brother Bell, the previous speaker, we had kind of like come together and we had some bullet points that we wanted to cover. So basically what he said is what we were really interested in. We're representing Eastern North Carolina here for the next 10 years. There's a lot of things going on. We just want to make sure that everything is done fairly, just above board, and I guess just to let everybody know that, hey, all eyes will be watching what's going on here. So We just want to keep it up front and above water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Branch. And with a reminder, recordings of this meeting, they are being recorded. They will be posted on the North Carolina leg.gov website within 1 day after all of these meetings. ncleg.gov. Max Avent.
Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. And just like Gerald, I think my bullet points have primarily been covered, but I do want to reiterate a couple of put more emphasis on, or put just as much emphasis on the African-American voters should not be packed into a few districts through racial gerrymandering to dilute their votes, and Democratic voters should not be packed into a few districts through partisan gerrymandering to dilute their votes. And districts must be drawn that are not compact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Avent. Larry Alston.
Thank you for this opportunity. I too want to talk in reference or speak on the redrawing the voting district lines. As you understand and know already, is that we have doing this for North Carolina, eastern part of the state. As elected officials, you are responsible for the integrity of our election process. Legislators must draw the districts that do not have split precincts. Split precincts are the source of much of the voters' confusion, all right? And it can cause other problems. Each voter in the precinct should have the same ballot, number one, contain the same candidate. When this does happen, there's confusion among the voters concerned. Like, for instance, which line do I stand in? Why is my neighbor in a different line or has a different ballot? Am I in the right place? Thank you. All right. Is my vote going to count? This can cause voters to stay at home out of frustration and cause distrust with the process. Split precincts can cause voters to give up, be given the wrong ballot on election day, and so their votes don't even count. All right? Polling places for split precincts are also more costly to operate because of the accommodation must be made for different precincts. More election officials and more voting machines should be there. All right? This is what I see that we really need to do not split the precincts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alston. Rick Horner.
Thank you. Welcome to Nash County, Mr. Chairman.
Glad to be here.
Please have some barbecue while you're here. My name is Rick Horner. I used to be the senator for Nash, Wilson, and Johnson counties, and I just want to address the published groupings that I've seen. I don't know if you guys are using those yet, but I've seen it's an algorithm. Apparently, they're pretty accepted on how these counties will be put together, and if they are correct, the House and the Senate, I want to address the Nash-Wilson County grouping and the 2 House seats involved. Based on the Stevenson criteria of whole counties, Wilson will obviously be kept whole, and they will use some precincts from Nash. Currently, Nash has 5 precincts that are grouped with Franklin. One of those has a split between Representative Gaylord and Representative Winslow. If you can eliminate that and make that a whole precinct, that makes sense to me. But what I wanted to say was the simplest thing for the voters, and I know we want to keep our representatives separate, which this would do anyway, is to make it simple for the voters and just move those precincts to Wilson. They are contiguous. They follow the line. The precincts in Mr. Winslow's district, Representative Winslow's district, butt up to the watershed of Wilson County, Buckhorn Lake. Very important. The proximity of Sims, which the town of Bailey is 3.5 miles from, that's a Wilson town. They need to put sewer through there to Wilson. There's a lot of things Southern Nash County has in common with Wilson, and I've been a proponent of keeping those two together as long as I've been in public service, and I've served both counties. And I just think it's very important that you look at that criteria of the community interest when you do these things. And it will be, as everyone said, compact. They basically cover the whole line of the county. And so that's really the point I wanted to make, that when you do these things, think about the simplicity of the voters. Representative Gaylor's district would probably not even be touched, which, except for picking up maybe whatever the other one, Farrell's or one of those districts. But anyway, the idea is to make it simple on the voters, not have to go to a precinct and get 2 different ballots. But anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. Wyatt McGee.
I'm speaking as a resident of Nash County. The North Carolina Constitution gives our elected General Assembly the authority and responsibility for drawing representative districts after every 10-year census. The North Carolina Constitution does not give that authority to the courts or to special interest groups. Unfortunately, in recent years, we have seen mainly left-leaning groups who have not been happy over the balance of power in the General Assembly file numerous lawsuits in order to circumvent the North Carolina Constitution. I'm here today as a registered voter to commend our Republican-led General Assembly for previously carrying out their redistricting duties in the most transparent, fair, and constitutional manner in the history of our state, and to encourage them to do the same in the current redistricting process. Based on the North Carolina Constitution, each elected official should represent roughly an equal number of inhabitants. The districts must be contiguous and counties must not be divided. The fact that these public hearings are being held demonstrates the transparency of this redistricting process. The redistricting criteria put forward in the Senate Committee on Redistricting demonstrate the fairness of the process. If anything, I am afraid that the Republican leaders in the General Assembly are going too far to accommodate the other side of the aisle. The redistricting process should not seek to dilute current Republican majorities. The North Carolina Constitution does not mandate that this process be nonpartisan, and the Democrats never carried out a nonpartisan process during the decades that they were in the majority. As President Obama famously said, elections have consequences. For the last 10 years, the people of North Carolina have continued to vote for a Republican majority in the General Assembly. Therefore, it would be unreasonable and to go against precedent to try to undermine that majority through this process. In closing, I hope and pray that this process will continue in a fair and timely manner, and that no one will seek to use the courts or any other means to circumvent the redistricting authority granted to the General Assembly by the North Carolina Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Robbie Davis.
First, I'd like to say welcome to Nash County. I am Robbie Davis. I'm the chair of the Nash County Board of Commissioners, and we are a county of about 96,000 people. We have not grown a lot the last 10 years, but fortunately we have not lost population the last 10 years either. We have a lot of movement within our county. We are a voting rights county, and we have 7 commissioners that serve 7 different districts. We are also known as probably the or one of the most purple counties in North Carolina. Our board currently has 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats. We get along very well and we get a lot done for the citizens of Nash County. The expectations from our board about redistricting at the state level is as follows. Do your best to keep it simple so we can understand it. We want it to be fair for all voters. We would like to see it done in a way that leaves little room for challenges. Thank you, sir. We would like to see it done one time that will last for the next 10 years. We hope that there will be no gamesmanship utilized in the process. We would like to see logical boundaries used whenever possible. We would like to see the maps. We would like to look at the maps when completed and just simply be able to say, job well done. We understand existing member residents should be a consideration. What we would not like to see is a district created for a person that may wish to run for office. And more importantly, what we would not like to see is what we have seen for the last 10 years, the last 15 years, and the last 20 years. Thank you for your time, and again, welcome to Nash County.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. George Leach.
Almost everything has already been said, and I'm not going to say anything that you don't already know. My name is George Leach, I'm from Wilson County. After the framers had decided that the House of Representatives representation would be based on the number of people living in the nation, they chose to count them every 10 years. The first census was 1790. Since then, we have counted every 10 years. The idea was equal representation for everybody. Several cases have trickled down through the courts in various attempts to preserve the idea of equal representation. And yet, we chose to stray all the way from that idea and have representation based on a political party rather than equity. If we base our new maps on morality, we would not have a supermajority in the North Carolina General Assembly, and communities of color would receive due portion of funding from the federal governments and other sources. But more than that, the people of North Carolina in general would have an adequate voice in government at the state level. Gerrymandered districts continue to create conflict and contentiousness that leads us to the courts. The North Carolina Constitution and the Constitution of the United States guarantees equal representation. It is time to dispense with this foolishness of drawing safe districts and move to a system of equity. So I entreat you to institute morality and do the right thing. Exclude your seat from the decision-making. Issue maps before the process is made. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leach. Andy Jackson.
Andy Jackson, Wake County, with the John Locke Foundation. I want to thank you, first of all, for setting up these hearings and the 12 related hearings across the state to hear our concerns and observations about redistricting. And I also appreciate the criteria that was approved by the joint committees, particularly the ban on the use of racial and election data. The only unfortunate part was the adaptation of criteria that included incumbents' addresses. What I really want to address is that something that many people in this room appreciate that most folks in North Carolina do not, is that legislators in North Carolina are restrained in drawn districts by the U.S. Constitution, the North Carolina Constitution, the Voting Rights Act, and related court cases. In particular, Stevenson versus Bartlett of 2002 restrains how you can cross county lines when drawing districts. And these constraints allow people to know the districts, or at least a large portion of those districts, before legislators even start to draw them. For example, a team of researchers led by Professor Chris Cooper of Western Carolina University found that Nash County is going to share a Senate district with Franklin and Vance counties, that Edgecombe County is going to share a district with Pitt County in the North Carolina Senate, that Wilson County is going to share a Senate district with Wayne and Greene counties. Furthermore, and this has been alluded to already, we know that Nash and Wilson counties are going to be combined to form 2 House districts. And they're probably going to look something similar to this. Maybe some variation, but about like this. I don't have any insider information. I promise I haven't talked to anybody at this table beforehand or anybody on either of the redistricting committees. It's simply a matter of geography and math. And I think you legislators would do your communities a service if you help people appreciate better not only what legislators can do when you're drawing districts, but what you cannot do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Someone with the last name Branch, and I'm sorry, I can't make out the first name, and that's my fault. Anyone last name Branch? The first name starts with a G is all I can tell you. You've already spoken. Pete Armstrong. Thank you for that, by the way.
Good afternoon. I'm Pete Armstrong from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And what I'm going to say, I do not say out of disrespect to our local elected officials, but to me it would be extremely helpful and important to the city of Rocky Mount if it's any way the city could be in one district. Everyone here, I think, knows of the challenges that we face as a city for being located in 2 counties. One factor that would help us is to have the same representation in legislative bodies to represent our region as a whole. It would be very likely that the representative would be aware of the needs, interests, and status of the whole region as opposed to looking at individual parts. Many of us are trying endlessly to bring our region together. To me, this is one way that we can prepare for the future and represent what we should be in the future of being one community. Thank you. Secondly, real quickly, it's somewhat appalling to me that once the maps are published, there will be only one public meeting to respond to. That says to me that what you see is what you're going to get, and I don't think that that should be right. And finally, I think it's the time to put an end to gerrymandering in North Carolina. It confuses voters, it favors politics, and I feel like that we are much better, and I think that you are much better than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Melanie Goff Bradley.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Melanie Goff Bradley. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of the Twin Counties, and hello to my representative. I was born in Rocky Mount on the Nash County side. I live just outside the city limits now on the Edgecombe County side in my grandfather's farmhouse. We're an unusual city in 2 counties. Redistricting in 2010 split our county in half along the county line. Over the years, this has led to a hardening of 2 sides, us versus them, as if we are 2 different kinds of people living in 2 different cities. That is untrue, but it has led to distrust and accusations that supporting one side is to the detriment, indeed the intentional denigration of the other. This has proceeded for years so far as to wholly endanger our school system. Another 10 years could split not only the schools, but also the city. Gerrymandered redistricting is a tool used by white supremacists, not one that our selected officials should use. We the people are the power of our democracy, and we elect you to serve us. The population of Rocky Mount, as well as most of Edgecombe and Nash County, can support the arrangement of one district, and I ask you not to maintain this division. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Marcus Thompson.
Hello, my name is Marcus Thompson with Democracy North Carolina, and I thank you for being here in Nash County today. This process of redistricting is designed to happen every 10 years, and we understand that this process is going to shape the power dynamics for the next 10 years. And so because it's so important, we deserve a process that will allow input from as many people as possible. That means more hearings in more places. We need hearings at times when working people can get off of work and be at these hearings. Not during the time at 5 when they're still working, perhaps, or it would be hard to get here. We also would need a virtual option so that the public doesn't have to risk their health to come and make these public comments. It also would be good to have, not good, but really vital to have hearings after the maps are drawn so that people can really see what is going to happen to them and be able to have comment at that point too. We learned that race would not be a factor in drawing these maps. However, in order to comply with the Voting Rights Act, we believe that race should be a factor, not the only factor, but it should be a factor to protect the voting rights of people who have had their vote diminished in many years past. Also, so those are the process things that I wanted to put on the record. But I just want to take a second and talk about something a bit larger. We know that redistricting is a partisan process, right? We understand that. And so I strongly encourage us to look at a process that would take as much partisanship out of this process as possible, perhaps an independent commission, something that will make it so that we're not always so divided. North Carolina is often referred to as a purple state, and so we have a chance to draw lines that are fair for all people. And maybe we can get away from the divisions that we see in other parts of the country. Always you see old versus young, black versus white, Republican versus Democrat. But here we have an opportunity to draw fair districts that are competitive so that the best ideas can rise to the top and the best people. So that it's not better for Republicans or Democrats, but best for our democracy and the people of North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Gary Booz.
I'm Gary Boos. I live near the western edge of Franklin County. After the Common Cause v. Lewis suit in October 2019, the North Carolina Superior Court three-judge panel ruled that the 2017 maps are hereby approved by the court. This was because, and I read from part of the ruling, item 3, all decisions to alter the base maps were narrow, reasonable, and received broad bipartisan support. Number 4, the entire process was concluded in full public view. And 5, the Senate remedial maps were adopted by the Senate with broad bipartisan support. Reading from the dictionary of view, to see, watch, or inspect. The current mid-September 2021 maps have not been created yet. There is no broad bipartisan support. There is no independent redistricting commission. There is no referee. The plan for the Republican-controlled committee is to draw the maps in secret and later present the final maps. There is no process in full public view. The die will have been cast, complaints from the public can be made, but the maps will be as the Republicans desire. Will the Republicans pack and crack? In the 2020 elections, Republicans received 49.4% of the votes for the North Carolina 13 U.S. House seats and ended up winning eight of the 13 seats. Wouldn't the North Carolina courts expected the same criteria be used for the 2021 maps as was ordered for the 2017 maps? Do the Republicans controlling the map drawing process have to be sued for violating the criteria ordered for the 2017 maps? Will they be sued by common cause? Will the Superior Court, knowing their decree and orders for the 2017 maps have been ignored, if not violated, for the 2021 maps? Will they do anything? If a scheme was ruled illegal in 2017, does the Superior Court have to rule that the same scheme is illegal in 2021?
Thank you, Mr. Booth. I'm going to go back to the top of the list and call these names, folks that weren't here. Maybe they came in a little late. Leonard Ward. Leonard Ward. Kelby Hicks. Thank you. Oh, I thought I saw him coming to the mic. Kyle Johnson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Johnson, and I am a resident of Rocky Mount here in Nash County. And I am a former teacher. I'm a current educator. I work in ministry. I love my community. And as I try to raise my children, I have 2 daughters and 1 on the way, and I try to influence the next generation. I try my very best to educate them and empower them on making sure they're fulfilling their purpose. And I have to say I'm extremely disappointed consistently when I look at a government that promises an equal and fair democracy, but yet uses tactics that actually demolish that. And I hope that as we're working toward this new redistricting, for the next 10 years, you will ask yourself, what's the point? Why are we doing this? And if what you're doing is hindering people, stopping people from being successful, if what we're doing is being a bad example, not just to our peers, but also to our next generation, what is the point? And if the outcome of that is something that is negative, I would hope that as representatives who have promised to do best for the community, you will look at what is best for the whole, not just my demographic, not just the people who I think I align with, but what is best for the whole. Because what we do for the next 10 years will affect our city and our counties and our state for decades to come. And I realize oftentimes as I advocate for better, as I advocate for education, as I advocate for community, that what I do in Nash County can be completely hindered by what happens in Forsyth County and what happens in Buncombe County. And so as you are working toward the districts, I beg you and I implore you as a citizen, as a person who loves North Carolina, as a person who loves Eastern North Carolina, to please remember the point of it all. And if anything that you're doing in any ways that we're drawing maps and any things that we're working toward and making backroom deals or trying to make sure that we're saying the right things up front, and saying we're pro-democracy without actually supporting it by making sure that voters have equal access not just to the ballot but also to representation, I pray that you would really work to do the opposite and to work toward better, not just for now, not just for your seat, not just for your power, but for what we're doing for society as a whole. Because it's really hard for me to know that my 8-year-old will have to wait until she's 18 to make sure that I can vote for her in the best way possible. And that those who vote for their representatives and their congresspeople and their senators across the state, what is happening with them will affect her when she's off ready to go to college. And by then, all of the policies that have been created will either help her or hurt her. So please remember, what's the point? And please help my children in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Come to the end of the list, but if there's anyone else here that would like to speak that hasn't already spoken, of course, you are more than welcome to come up and tell us who you are and if you're with any group and you have the same amount of time as anyone else. Anyone else wishing to speak? As they say in church, all hearts cleared. I want to thank everyone. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Sydney Meeks. I'm 25, and I am newly elected as the 3rd vice chair of the Nash Democratic Party, and I also serve in many other organizations. But one thing that I wanted to say was that we live in the Bible Belt, and a lot of people claim to be Christian, probably in this room. And one of the things that Jesus really talked about was making sure that widows, children, and the poor were taken care of. And so if you believe in the same God that I do, I would ask you that to not allow a tactic that has been used for several years affecting people that look like me, gerrymandering or segregation, they're no different, to make sure that everyone has the resources that are fair in their communities. And I would just ask that any map that you lay out, please use it as fairly as possible, and so that it doesn't just be ruled by the majority, but for people, all equal people under the protection of the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leakes. Anyone else?
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Castor Noble Hooks. I'm from Wilson, North Carolina. I'm a 70-year-old disabled American veteran who was born in Jim Crow, who as a teenager grew up in integration. And I'm concerned with the direction that this nation is going in now. Gerrymandering was wrong when I was a child. It was used to disenfranchise Black Americans here in North Carolina from 1898 to 1964. And I ask you, don't take us back into that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hooks. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Leake. I'm a resident of Wilson County. I'm a millennial who's a strong advocate for the Young Dems here in the East. Okay. Closer? All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes, that's better.
Awesome. One question I have in mind is how much of the redistricting will affect Eastern North Carolina? The reason why I say this is because Eastern North Carolina has already got the short end of the stick from the state in the past. We're already dealing with the redistricting lines that has affected the voting cycles in the past. How will this affect the future even more? That's the only question that I have in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leake. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Mick Rankin. I'm running for the North Carolina House to represent Wilson. And I just want to thank you all for being here, holding these hearings. I think it's important. The challenges that you face is not a matter of Republican or Democrat, but it's a matter of ensuring that everybody in the communities feel like that they are represented. And unfortunately, a lot of times when one party becomes, more prevalent, people begin to feel like that they're not representative in their area. And so we need to make sure that when we draw the lines, that they keep them simple for the voters to know where they can go to vote. And two, that we ensure proper representation across all boundaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Langdon. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. You're next after he had stood up before. You're next, though.
My name's Terry, and I grew up in Wyoming, but I've raised my family here in Nash County, and this is where I call home. Another thing I would implore everyone is whatever you do, make it open. Just imagine if there's a camera pointed at you the whole time, and that's public, that we all get to see it. And if there's something on your hard drive that the public sees and it makes you look like you're hiding something, you probably are. Don't hide anything, keep it open and transparent, and that'll keep the process protected for us as the citizens to know that what's being done is being done out in the open and transparent.
Thank you, Terry. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for being here, having this hearing, the first one I've been to. I'm a resident of Wilson County, and my concerns are about people who are our elected officials locally and up. That this thing is going on now with the pandemic and the mask, people not wanting to go to work, public restaurants are closing or opening and closing. It's very confusing. I'm a senior citizen. And now they have programs going on for people who are not working, able-bodied people who could work are not working, and they're receiving resources. And my concerns are about the seniors. We can't get the $300 or whatever resources. For me, I don't have, I'm too old to have any more children. And I want to know when they're going to focus in on the seniors who are on fixed incomes, especially in these smaller counties or cities like Wilson, for instance. And it kind of bothers me that they're having they redistricting and drawing lines and everything. And I heard somebody, it's like, what's the purpose? I see changes, or I feel like changes should affect and be effective for everyone that's concerned, all voters. And me as a voter, sometimes I feel like I'm left out. You know, when they draw these lines, I'm either here or I'm there, or I'm here or there, and I want to be centered. So when I go to vote, I want to feel confident that my vote is not going in as a number, but it's going in to make a difference. Thank you.
What's your name, ma'am, if we could have your name?
Oh, Christine Adams.
Thank you, Miss Adams. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Griselda Alonso.
Good afternoon, my name is Griselda Alonso.
Y yo soy una muestra de que se necesita interpretación en este tipo de audiencias.
And I am an example of why interpretation is needed in these hearings.
Nuestra comunidad está viviendo aquí, está trabajando aquí. Nuestros hijos tienen derecho a votar.
Our community is living here, we are working here, and our children have the right to vote.
Por lo tanto, nosotros como padres también tenemos derecho a vivir en zonas sin que este sea un obstáculo para tener asistencia médica, escuela o cuidado para nuestros hijos.
And we as parents have the right to live in districts that facilitate our receiving health care and access to other resources.
Necesitamos personas que nos representen con dignidad, con respeto, con equidad.
We need representatives who will represent us with dignity and with equity.
Y eso es lo que yo espero de estas audiencias, que ustedes al escuchar todas estas personas que están diciendo lo que afecta a sus comunidades, realmente los lleven a las mesas.
And that's what I hope to get out of these hearings, that you will really listen to everything that all of us have to say and bring that to the table.
El no contar con interpretación es empujar cada vez más a nuestra comunidad a la segregación.
By not providing interpretation services, you are pushing our communities towards segregation.
Y creo que ya tuvimos suficiente de eso en demasiados años, ¿no lo creen?
And I feel like there has been way too much segregation over the years. Don't you agree?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Just to be considerate of time, I'd like to read a brief statement so I can be as concise as possible with my thoughts. In 1787, the Constitution was established as the supreme law of the land. In its first 52 words, otherwise known as the preamble, the principles of fair processes and fair results were implicated as core components of our nation's governance model. My name is Kelby Hicks, and I'm a native of northeastern North Carolina. I'm also an alumnus of North Carolina A&T, and I was a student there when we had to navigate the confusing voting process with a gerrymandered district that left many students feeling disenfranchised. I was one of those students. We don't do nearly enough to educate or provide notice to our electorate on this rigged process, and it leaves many citizens feeling overwhelmed when attempting to exercise a fundamental right to vote for their political representation. The inadequate criteria, coupled with the lack of transparency regarding this process, leads to disproportionate results and decreased public confidence. The will of the people is being subverted by the weight of mapmakers who've exercised wanton disregard for our interests. We need a new, independent map-making method that incorporates common sense criteria. We want an equal voice, an equal vote, and equal value in the political process. It's not that I don't believe our legislators know how to draw fair maps. It's that I don't believe they will because there's no incentive to do so. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when we give political parties the power to draw partisan maps in their favor, then they absolutely will. This doesn't lend itself to a fair and inclusive process. Political power belongs to the people. And until it is placed properly in our hands, we will continue a process that is adverse to our constitutionally protected interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Julián Abreu y vengo representando la comunidad hispano-estadounidense de Carolina del Norte.
Good afternoon. My name is Julián Abreu, and I come representing Hispanic community in North Carolina.
Para pedirle que por favor seamos justos en la redistribución de recursos que amerita nuestra comunidad en el estado de Carolina del Norte y específicamente en el condado de Nash.
I come to ask you to be fair in the redistribution redistricting and the distribution of resources, and specifically for the Hispanic community in Nash.
Cuando hablo de recursos me refiero a educación, salud, vivienda y derecho al voto libremente, sin ninguna segregación de nuestras comunidades minoritarias.
When I talk about resources, I mean resources like education, health, housing, and the right to vote without being discriminated against.
De igual manera, tenemos derecho a una interpretación en nuestro idioma en estas audiencias porque somos parte importante de una comunidad creciente económicamente.
And in addition, we should also have the right to interpretation at these hearings because we are part of a community that is growing rapidly and contributing to the economy.
Esperamos en las próximas audiencias contar con el apoyo de ustedes. Muchas gracias.
I hope that in the future, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you for coming in. Oh, one more. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alonzo Lyons. I'm a citizen of Nashville, North Carolina. I feel like I'm coming up here pretty much to say the same thing that a lot of people here are saying. We just want fairness, and everyone should be represented. We just need, it's important that the way the lines will be drawn will impact us for the next 10 years. It'll affect us, it'll affect our children, our grandchildren, it'll affect our families. As a citizen, I beg of you to just do and think about your own families and think about your neighbor to try to bring us all together when redrawing these districts so everyone can feel represented, because we all should be represented, because we're all one community. Thank you all, and everyone have a nice evening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I want to thank you for being a part of this, and be sure to check out the website, ncleg.gov. And there's a comment area there where you can make online comments, and we'd love to hear from everyone. Thank you for being here tonight, and everyone have safe travels. Everyone good? Thank you. God bless. Good night.